This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Network. My name is Chris Blades, and before we get started today, I want to make sure I take the time out to remind you, as always, if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast, make sure you never miss an episode, make sure all on top when we drop our latest stuff. Also, if you could please as well, give us a 5-star rating where I sense view. It'd be very appreciated. Very helpful, allows you to like, which I dislike, the ways you can improve, all that fun stuff. And also, if you're on social media, we're on social media, so you can find us there, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can debate, we can discuss. And is it time now to discuss, possibly, the Bills being the second best team in the AFC? Because, I mean, they were probably, in most people's eyes, third or fourth, depending on how you feel about the Titans, behind the Chiefs and the Steelers. But they played the Steelers tonight. And obviously there was, like, some weather and things, so it wasn't, like, the perfect scenario. But the Bills looked like the better team for a vast majority of that game, and that was evidenced by the final score. So the Bills were able to come out with a W, 26-15, and this is now back-to-back losses for the Steelers. At least this one's a little bit better than the Washington loss, though Washington continued to play well and won again today. We'll talk about that in the next segment. Like I said, both teams kind of started out a little slow. There was no points scored in the first quarter, a couple punts, and then Josh Allen threw an interception. So like I said, that wasn't exactly the great start. And then there were more punts. And so like I said, very, very defensive heavy game to start out. And like I said, not even, a lot of these drives weren't even like long drives. Like I think the longest drive in like the first 8 or 9 was like 8 plays. So again, it's not like these teams were driving and then just like stalling. Like there wasn't really a whole lot being done. But then a fumble forced by the Steelers, recovered by the Steelers, led to the first points. It was a touchdown by James Washington from Big Ben to James Washington. That opened up the scoring, and then that's really where things kind of got started. But then the real action that kind of put this game onto the side of Buffalo, and where they were just able to continue that into the second half, was the pick six at the end of the half. So the Bills are down 7-3. The Steelers have the ball in 2-minute drill, and with like a minute left, like 50 seconds left, Big Ben tries to throw, I would assume was like an out to Juju. At least he was out breaking. Threw a little bit too far inside, and Tyron Johnson picked it off. Juju couldn't catch up to him, and he ran about 51 yards to the house. And that is really where the Bills started to separate themselves. Like I said, it was very close up until that point. It was, like I said, there was 7-3 at that time, so it really wasn't a whole lot of scoring being done. Like I said, that pick six, and then leading into the second half, that's what really got the Bills going. As they came out of the half, because the Steelers just sat on the ball after that. They were like, we're not going to risk another turnover and then like go down by more. So they came out in the second half. The Bills did, got a touchdown on their first drive. And this one was a pass from Stephon Diggs. From Josh Allen to Stephon Diggs. Then they forced the punt. Then they got another touchdown, this time from Josh Allen to Gabriel Davis. And next thing you knew, they were up 23-7. When, like I said, it was like a minute left in the half. In the first half, they were down 7-3. So like I said, it came quick, fast, and in a hurry for the Bills. They were able to score. They were able to score another field goal. And the Steelers were able to get a touchdown from Big Ben to Juju, and the other 2-point conversion. But an interception late there kind of sealed it. Even though, like I said, at that point the Bills put a nice drive together, 11 plays, 61 yards to go up officially by 11. Some penalties and things like that helped them move the ball down the field a little bit. But like I said, the game was essentially over, and then Big Ben threw another pick. It is what it is, but that one was picked off by Levi Wallace. Like I said, the Bills, once they got going, really showed the separation between the two teams, and their defense, that's gotten healthier and that has played better throughout the second half of the season, really showed up tonight. Like I said, came up with a couple turnovers. Like I said, the Steelers really couldn't do a whole lot offensively, though. They were still plagued by drops a little bit. I believe someone said Deontay Johnson was benched by the end because I know he had a couple of drops. I think Ebron had a key drop in there as well. So, like I said, that's as we talked about last week with their run game. Even though their run game was better in this one, but I mean, it took carries from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different people. And so, like I said, but they weren't really running the ball like that because that's not. Oh, that's receiving. My bad. I was about to say that doesn't make any sense. Yeah, they ran 17 times for 47 yards. Okay, yeah. And so, like I said, their run game again was non-existent, and because their short passing game is an extension of their run game. But like I said, when their short passing game is ineffective, then instead of at least being at like 2nd and 9 or 2nd and 8, you're still at 2nd and 10, or like 3rd and 10 or whatever, because you're either drops or just miscommunications or just not having just not being in tune on the routes or different things like timing being off, whatever you want to call it. Like I said, the Steelers once again. Their offense looks a little shaky. And again, their defense did what they could. They're getting more and more banged up by the game. But the one key stat, in my opinion, was that they only got 1 sack in this game. Again, they continued their streak of getting a sack, but they got like 6 hits on Josh Allen. So again, he was back there getting under a little bit of pressure, but they weren't able to get him on the ground 3-4 times, kind of get them off schedule, stall drives out, things like that, especially in that second half. And that's really what hurt them. Next up, without Bud Dupree out there, that was going to be an issue for them, is getting that pressure consistently. And like I said, they were dealing with other injuries as well at the linebacker position. So it's not just that, but like I said, they've shown over the last couple of games that there are some vulnerabilities in them. But again, that you could say that going back prior to that, like when you look at the Steelers' schedule, and again, you beat who you beat, and that's not really the big issue here, but like. A lot of their games, they were winning close. Like I said, they beat the Giants close, beat the Broncos close early. Needed a late Chase Claypool touchdown against the Eagles when they were still kind of not really that good. Not barely, but beat the Titans by a field goal. Beat the Ravens multiple times, both times by only 1 score. We're in a tight one with the Cowboys with Garrett Gilbert starting. So like I said, they hadn't really shown themselves to be a dominant team outside of the defensive side of the ball. And obviously, as that side's gotten worse, no shocker, the offense has continued to be about what it was, and thus they've lost more games. Like I said, when you look at some of these games, defense has given up 16, 21, 7, 24, 19, 10, 3, 14. Even in the last 2 games, they've given up 23 and 26 points. Like that's not like their defense is out there getting smoked now, but their offense, but because they're giving up a few more points, the offense hasn't been able to pick up the slack. When that's kind of what you needed. Because, again, the defense side of the ball is less healthy. As I said, as you lose key guys, it's like, all right, you're going to need the offense to do some things, and the offense hasn't been able to do that these last couple of weeks, and that's why they've been hurt. Like I said, for the Bills, big win to show, because like I said, they'd lost to the Titans already this year, they lost to the Chiefs already this year, so you wanted to show that you could hang with the big dogs, quote-unquote, in the AFC, and that's what this game did, and especially when they did it in the fashion in which they did it, where they were clearly, especially in that second half, the better team throwing through. So like I said, that was big. They play the Patriots still coming up. They play the Dolphins still coming up. So, again, still some decently tough matchups. Well, Dolphins, yes. Patriots, we'll see. Yeah, and then the Broncos, again, we'll see. Depends on if Drew Lock's throwing the ball over or not, which, again, he has been. So maybe they capitalize on that. Like I said, it's a big win for them. Big win for Josh Allen. Like I said, it's had a couple turnovers. I mean, well, yeah, he had the 1 interception. So, not great for like the MVP race or things like that. But, again, getting this win is what was important. Again, his numbers weren't really that jaw-dropping or that like eye-popping, but again, he got a key win and made some good throws there, especially in the second half for those couple touchdown passes. So that's what you want to see out of Josh Allen. It's like, can he handle playing against the elite teams and the elite defenses and things like that. And that's what he was able to show in this one. So again, shout out to him, shout out to the Bills. They were able to get the dub, which will be big for them going forward. Because again, now if the Steelers lose one more game, whether it's because they still got to play the Colts, still got to play the Browns. They play the Bengals next week. They should win that one, but they got to play the Colts and the Browns in the season. If they lose one of those two games and the Bills win out. Now they're the 2 seed instead of being the 3. Like I said, this game was very important. And now also obviously the Chiefs are the 1 seed, which we'll talk about in a second. So I said shout out to the Bills. Big win for them. And just to see if they'll be able to continue that going forward. Because I think it was last year they were talking about how they kind of started off hot and then faded towards the end. If this year they continue to play strong heading into the playoffs, that'll be big. And also, if nothing else, this Bills team has shown the why it's important to trade for a star receiver when you can, if he's available. Obviously, because Stephon Diggs, not that the offense was that bad last year, but clearly Stephon Diggs has made a great deal of difference for not only just the Bills, but for Josh Allen specifically. So like I said, if there's a star wide receiver out there, and you think you can really help your team, and like holding on to your picks or hoarding your picks is not really worth it. Because like I said, if you have a proven receiver out there, again, it doesn't always work out. Obviously, Odell and Baker haven't really been on the same page. Up until Kyle was getting hurt, DeAndre was looking good, and still his numbers are very good this year. Again, I think he's made a difference for that team, and probably was why they're in the playoff hunt. So like I said, you have other examples of it, but again, this is the best example, and just seeing how good this offense is now with Stephon Diggs in it. When you have like an elite, true number 1 receiver, it opens everything else up for everybody else. Like I said, Cole Beasley is having a great year. Gabriel Davis is coming on strong recently. Josh Allen looks a lot better than many people thought he could. So, like I said, Stephon Diggs has really made a world of difference there in Buffalo. So like I said, trade for the stars when you can, especially stars that can help out a young quarterback. Speaking of young quarterbacks, Tua, he got it together late, made it a little bit more interesting. But definitely got off to a rougher start. Like they were down 30-10 heading into the 4th. Again, they made it a game, but it's an issue when you can pick off Mahomes 3 times. And I think up until the 3rd one, they picked them up twice in the first quarter, they were only up 7-0. They were up 10-0 early. But then again, once the Chiefs get started, it's kind of hard to stop. They were up 14-10 by the end of the first half. Like I said, so up until their 3rd pick, like when they picked up Mahomes for the 3rd time, they were down 30-10. Now, they were able to get touchdowns on their next 2 drives, and then they were able to drive to a field goal and hope for the onside kick, which didn't end up working out. But like I said, with them getting those 2 early turnovers and not really being able to capitalize on them more, like I said, the first one, they end up missing a field goal, and then the second one, they end up kicking another field goal. So like I said, they got 2 turnovers from Mahomes in the first quarter, which, he had thrown, I think, 2 interceptions on the year. Obviously threw 3 in this game, so more than doubled his total on the season in just this one game. So again, it wasn't a great game from him. But like I said, they weren't able to capitalize on it the way, weren't able to capitalize on the turnovers the way in which you would hope for. And again, that's kind of what happens when you have a younger quarterback in there. Like I said, he's not, like you expect, like the elite level quarterbacks, they kill you on that kind of stuff. You lose the turnover differential to quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers, quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes, like the Drew Brees of the world, Tom Brady, kind of, sort of, maybe not this year, but like in general, like if you're playing a very good team and a very good quarterback and you're turning the ball over 2-3 times, especially early, you're going to be down early. So like I said, the Dolphins kind of let them off the hook. Now, regardless, then once Mahomes started playing a little bit better, then like I said, they were able to get 2 touchdowns before the half, and the Dolphins just really weren't able to move the ball at all for a long, long period of time. Like a very long period of time, they just weren't able to do anything. And they got a fumble, too. I forgot about that. They recovered a fumble as well from McCole Hardman, and that turned into a safety. So, like I said, their points off of turnovers were terrible in this game. They actually almost gave away as many points as they got from the turnovers this game. Well, I guess after the last interception, they got a touchdown, so that helps the numbers out a little bit. But like I said, prior to that last interception, the numbers weren't that good. But like I said, the Dolphins still are having a good year. Like I said, Tua obviously made it close later, which is what you would like to see. Again, you would like to see him play a little bit better earlier in the game. But he had a couple nice touchdowns, touchdown drives, touchdown pass. I know the one to Gesicki in double cover, or like almost triple coverage, really, was like a perfect throw. You can't throw a ball much better than that. And then obviously he went on a nice little 14-play, 75-yard drive to cut the game to a 1 score. And unfortunately for them, they weren't able to get the Chiefs off the field on the next drive, and they were able to get in the field goal range, and ended up kicking a field goal to give them a 9-point lead that all but iced the game, or all but sealed the game, I guess I should say. But like I said, the defense is still good. Like Xavier Howard's still good. I think Byron Jones got a pick in this one as well. So like I said, the defense is legit. The offense, like I said, you get another receiver, get another year or two under his belt. Obviously, I know Myles Gaskin, I think, couldn't play very last minutes. I know that hurt probably the game plan in their running game, obviously, because he's been good for them this year. So, like I said, they're still close. The Dolphins aren't there yet, but at least they're trending, I should say, in the right direction based on where they were at last year, where their cupboard was very bare when it came to NFL caliber players. Just like I said, obviously you prefer to win these games. They would have wanted to win this one, but this was a nice little stepping stone for them to be like, hey, look, we're not that far off from being one of these teams. It may not be this year, but we're not that far off, which again is what you want to see in a young team. You want to see hey, how close are we to being one of the elite level teams? And like I said, I think in the next year they could, if they keep on the same path, they could be that. So like I said, shout out to the Dolphins, but the Chiefs are inevitable, unfortunately. Like I said, even when you play really well, you still find a way to you still can find a way to win games. And that's, like I said, that's a great team to do, and that's what the Chiefs have been able to do. So then looking around some other games in the AFC, the Titans did what they had to do, got their dub against the Jaguars. Derrick Henry continues to be, again, in the non-quarterback realm, he's probably, or he should be one of the leading MVP candidates. Had 216 yards. Again, it's the Jaguars, but had 215 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. Looked great. Again, a shocker, I know. The Colts, they put it on the Raiders, 44-27. Phillip Rivers had 2 touchdowns in this one. T.Y. Hilton had both the touchdown catches. He's back healthy and now looking playing better. Jonathan Taylor had a very good game, 20 carries for 150 yards, 2 touchdowns. The defense, again, giving them 27 points isn't great, but they were able to get a couple picks off of Derek Carr, including a really nice one by Kenny Moore in the back of the end zone in front of Darren Waller with one hand. That was big because I think when it happened, because at the time the Raiders were potentially going in for the lead, it was 17-16 at that time, and then from there the Colts were just able to pull away, and plus they got another interception later for a pick six. Willis got one. So, like I said, the Colts in a game they needed to win, again, to try to keep pace with the Titans. Now both teams are 9-4, and they said, like I said, they got the Steelers up on their schedule, so that was a big one for them to try to keep pace with the Titans, and they like I said, they really put it on the Raiders, which hurts their playoff hopes a little bit. They're back at 7-6. That's a tough spot to be in. Again, and they still got the Chargers, who are a weird team. You got the Dolphins still to play, and you got the Broncos still. So like I said, not the hardest schedule, but not an easy schedule either. But like I said, losing this one is definitely going to hurt the Chargers. I mean, not the Chargers, the Raiders in the long run. But like I said, shout out to the Colts. They need to keep pace because the Titans. Who do they have? I'm trying to think of who they have left to play. I know the Titans. Don't they play? No, they play the Packers. Okay, so they play the Lions, Packers, and Texans. So like I said, 2 bad teams, and then the Packers. And while I said the Colts play the Steelers still, who again you could argue how good of a team they are, but then they play the Texans and the Jaguars. Before and after that. So like I said, 2 teams they could beat, divisional opponents though, so you never really know. Like I said, this game. Both these teams need to win every game they can, because again, the one loss could drop you from the division lead into the wild card. Into a wild card position, which no one wants to be in. So that's the AFC side of things. And after we come back, we will talk about the NFC side and the Saints dropping a huge game, and also potentially maybe ending the Taysom Hill experiment. So we'll talk about both those things among other things right after the break. Stay right there.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Back here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, the Saints, clearly, much as you could argue the Seahawks may or may not have done last week, clearly overlooked the Eagles. I mean, I don't know what they will say or come out and say, but it seems as if they thought this game was going to be much easier than it was. And I mean, seeing as how the Eagles had played the last month and a half, obviously with a different quarterback, can't really say I blame them. But the big story in this one was just how well the Eagles ran the ball. They ran it to the tune of, 246 yards on 36 carries. Miles Sanders had 115. Obviously helped out a lot by the 82-yard touchdown run that he had. Jalen Hurts had 106 yards on 18 carries. Rager had a 1-yard run, and Boss Guy got a couple, but he didn't really do a whole lot there. So that was the one big story. And again, when you have a mobile quarterback like Jalen Hurts, this isn't that surprising. Like I said, I mean, I don't know the exact numbers or anything on this, but I feel like mobile quarterbacks open up the running game because, again, they add another dynamic, as in a player that the defense has to watch out for. Like I said, you have to account for him on those read option plays. Like I said, you can't just crash down on the running back because you're not worried about him keeping the ball. So that slight hesitation may cause a linebacker to take a secondary step, or a defensive end to hesitate for a second, and then the running back is able to get through a hole. And then that's important. And then also, like I said, you can call quarterback runs for him that are effective, which the Eagles did from time to time. And then maybe the biggest story, or the biggest aspect of it, and was very important in this game, is that when things break down, he can pick up yardage on his own. And like I said, that was one of the keys in this game. I think that's something that the Eagles, as an offense, have been missing. Was the fact that in general, obviously, Wentz had been doing it from time to time. It's not like he would never do it. But Jalen Hurts is a much more decisive runner. And by that, I mean, if he sees something he doesn't like, and he's like, you know what, I'm just gonna take off and run. Or if, like I said, there's a hole in the protection, or he has to step up in a certain way, he's not, in both a good way and a bad way, he's not fixated on what's going on down the field. He's like, oh, instead of trying to stand in the pocket and hold the ball for a while, or run around for a while until I find somebody open down the field, let me just take off and get this 5, 6, 7, 8 yards to keep our offense moving. Like I said, and that was evidence from the first drive where, it seemed like every play, the Eagles were getting positive yards. Again, they turned over on fourth down, but they were never losing yards. They were never in a negative yard situation. Generally, they were always moving the ball, and like I said, that can happen. And obviously, some of that was with him passing too. But like I said, mobile quarterbacks can do that. They can always make it so you're staying ahead of the sticks. Because again, if somebody's not open down the field, they can just take off and get 3-4 yards. So again, instead of just trying to force it, or taking a sack, instead of it being 2nd and 15, it's now 2nd and 6 or 2nd and 7 in situation. Again, it's not a first down always, even though he had some. Like I said, at least you're moving the ball forward. You're not going backwards. So like I said, that was big for them in this game for the Eagles. So like I said, that's just something that the offense had been missing, just a quarterback that was decisive enough and confident enough in his ability in the pocket to move around, and then when he had to run, and also, again, be able to stand in and take some hits and make some big throws, like the touchdown he had to Alshon. Like, he definitely got hit quite a bit in this game. And obviously, the offensive line didn't give up any sacks, but it's not like he wasn't pressured. He definitely got pressured, and the Saints definitely got to him, because again, they have a good defensive line. I guess they claim to only get 3 quarterback hits, but I know he was picking himself off the ground more than that. So again, I don't know exactly how they quantify a hit. But again, maybe it does not quantify on like a throwaway or something. But as I know, he got up off the ground more than 3 times. Obviously, he ran the ball too. But like I said, the no sacks against that defensive line, and like I said, their running game that hadn't, the Saints, I think, were coming in, like, were one of the top, not the number one rushing defense in the league. Hadn't given up a 100-yard rusher in 56 games, I think it was, and they gave up 2 in this game, and one of them being a rookie quarterback. I think at the second most yards. Definitely, I think in like a quarterback's like first start or something like that. Like he was, I know it was like he was comparable to like Lamar Jackson in terms of the kind of stat line he put up as a runner in his first game. It's like I said, Jalen Hurts, don't know if it's going to continue. Like his second most ever in a quarterback's first start. Lamar Jackson had 119 in his first start. So like I said, don't know what it's going to continue. Don't know how it'll go once teams and defense get film on him, though. I mean, the only real, not the Cardinals are a bad defense, but obviously the defense you would be worried about is Washington, because their defense is legit. Their front 7 is legit. But again, the Saints front 7 is legit. And like I said, he didn't get sacked. Now, like I said, that doesn't mean he didn't get hit. He didn't get sacked. And some of that was on him, being able to maneuver in the pocket better. Some of that was on the offensive line for playing better, and things like that. So, I say shout out to him. But on the flip side of that, Taysom Hill, not it. I mean, I knew that already. But again, anybody that was like, I know I saw some tweets and things like that, like, oh, people think like the way Taysom Hill has played in his last 3 games, like that is going to be further proof for why he's going to be the heir apparent to Drew Brees and blah, 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 and whatever. And, alright, that sounds good. But again, you look at the 3 games they played. They played the Falcons twice, who they know, and obviously the Falcons defense has been better in the second half of the year, but like, again, you still know the Falcons. And like I said, the first game they got like 8 or 9 sacks, or I think it was 8 sacks on Matt Ryan. Again, the defense was really stepped up. And then the game in between that, they played the Broncos with no quarterback. So again, it's not like they went through a real tough stretch. Like this was probably one of the, could probably say was their first real legit test. As crazy as that sounds, seeing as the Eagles were 8-1, I believe, coming into this game. So like I said, that sounds crazy to say, but you would argue this was their first real test. And like I said, they were down early because of Taysom Hill. Like the interception he had early on the screen pass, we just threw it too hard to Alvin Kamara, and it went off his hands. That hurt. They said the offense really wasn't able to muster up a whole lot. They punted they missed a field goal. Will Lutz definitely hurt them there. Like I said, other than that, they were always punting. And like I said, you're not going to win a whole lot of games when you're punting the ball every time. Then obviously, once they got the passing game going in the second half, they got back into it, and you thought that they were going to be able to come all the way back and win. But then they weren't able to do that because Jalen Hurts put together a nice little drive after a fumble where the Saints went for it on 4th down. Taysom Hill held the ball too long. Michael Thomas was open early. Like he was too fixated on the deep shot down the field. Held the ball too long, which again is what he does. He's not a good quarterback. And bad quarterbacks hold on to the ball because they're waiting for somebody to get open. Held onto the ball too long and ended up fumbling. And I mean that wasn't the only time they got to him. I believe 5 times in this game. 5 sacks, if I remember correctly. Yeah, they got 5 sacks in this game, 12 quarterback hits. So they were getting constant pressure on him. And like I said, this isn't a real quarterback. Or a real quarterback with any sort of like real extended amount of playing time. So again, getting hit that much, getting under that kind of duress and under that kind of pressure, you expect them to not play well. Like I said, if they had gotten, because it's not like, especially once the injury started to pile up, it was clear that you could pass the ball on the Eagles. And that's been clear all season, even with Darius Slay out there. Like the pass defense has been better than it has been in the past, but like again, you could attack their corners, you could attack their secondary corner in Avonte Maddox, you could attack their safeties, you could attack their linebackers. Like there were many ways to pass the ball on the team that didn't involve throwing it at Darius Slay, and even recently Darius Slay have been getting beat by the elite receivers, and they have one in Michael Thomas. So like I said, it's not like passing the ball wouldn't have worked. It's just like they had a quarterback that couldn't do it efficiently and effectively in this game. So, like I said, hopefully for many people that ends the Taysom Hill experiment. Granted, it's only one game, but like as you can see, like they were hindered by the quarterback. Again, some games you could watch and be like, oh, the defense is the reason we lost, or oh, the O-line is the reason we lost, or oh, special teams is the reason why we lost, or the kicker is the reason why we lost. Look at the Vikings. But like I said, you never want to look at it and be like, oh, the quarterback is the reason, is what's holding this team back. And like I said, that was part of what the Eagles' problem had been, in part, on top of other things, like the quarterback had been holding them back. Then they'd have a quarterback not holding them back. Again, the offense wasn't like spectacular. It was just better. But again, is what they needed to be. And then they played a quarterback that was actually holding the offense back. And thus is the situation. And now the Saints are no longer the 1 seed in the NFC. They drop to the 2 behind the Packers, who got a nice win. I mean, it's over the line, so it's not really surprising. But they got a win, and now both teams are 10-3. But because the Packers beat the Saints earlier in the year, they hold a tiebreaker. So this one hurt double because, like I said, not only did they lose and then lose the number 1 seed, but now they got to play the Chiefs next week. Like I said, they were probably hoping like, hey, could we get one more game out of Taysom Hill? And though I don't know if Drew Brees was healthy, and this would not have been a game for him to come back if he wasn't healthy because he was going to get those ribs hurt again. Like I said, now they play Kansas City next week. That's not going to be an easy one. So like I said, now they could potentially drop 2 in a row, while the Packers, who, like I said, they beat the Lions today, this being Sunday. But like I said, their schedule at the end of the season is not really that great. They play the Panthers, and they play the Titans, solid team, and they play the Bears, who, I mean, put on the Texans, but also the Texans are kind of bad, and Deshaun was out there. I mean, it's clear as day that team definitely needs some improvement on talent. But also, like, Mitch Trubisky was, like, really good in this game, so don't really know what Bears team's going to show up in Week 17. But like I said, if they can win next week and then be effectively 2 games clear of the Saints, assuming the Saints lose to the Chiefs, which is not a guarantee, but if they do, then you got to win one of these last 2 to secure the 1 seed. So if they beat the Titans, you don't even got to worry about the game against the Bears. Obviously, you'd probably want to win to potentially knock them out of playoff positioning if they're still in it. But like I said, you don't need to win that game. If, like I said, if you win next week against the Panthers and the Saints lose to the Chiefs, which again, I imagine most people will expect, even if, well, especially if Taysom Hill's is in there. He's not. I mean, him versus Patrick Mahomes. I mean, in a quarterback-to-quarterback situation, obviously. He's playing the Chiefs' defense and not Patrick Mahomes. But again, you're going to need to put up points against the Chiefs, and I don't know if Taysom Hill's the quarterback to do that, but again, we'll see. So like I said, yeah, the Packers got a big dub. That was important. Aaron Rodgers continued to look good. They clinched the NFC North as well. But yeah, he had 3 more touchdowns today. Devontae Adams had another 100-yard game, another touchdown. Like, it's just a very good day at the office for these two at this point. Also, what else? The Vikings. Like I said, that game hurt because I think Dan Bailey had 4 missed field goals. I want to double check on this because I believe he had 4. Oh, he had 3 and an extra point. Excuse me. He missed 3 field goals and an extra point in a game that the Vikings lost by 12. So, and again, I mean, it wasn't just him. Like, Kirk Cousins also fumbled. Like, he wasn't spectacular in this one. The defense got no sacks on Tom Brady. So again, it wasn't just Dan Bailey, but that was not an ideal situation. As I said, Dan Bailey missing 3 kicks, not great. Especially when if you hit at least 2 of those 3, or even if you hit all 3, then the drive the Vikings have at the end before the fumble, they're driving to potentially tie the game down 3 or even tied, as opposed to being down 12, where you got to try different things in that regard. As I said, I mean, they're probably going to lose the game anyway. But again, that fumble, that drive maybe goes differently if you're only down 3 or you're tied, as opposed to, like I said, being down 12. You gotta play it a little bit. You gotta play it a little bit different. So yeah, that one hurt the Vikings in their playoff chances. Obviously, they dropped 6 and 7. going to be tough for them to get back in the wild card race in that regard. The Bucs, obviously, a much-needed win. They need to get that one. Tom Brady, 2 more touchdowns. Ron Jones had a touchdown on the ground. Like I said, they didn't have like an otherworldly stat game, Tom Brady didn't, but again, he was efficient, and he was effective, and didn't get sacked, and didn't turn the ball over, which is, again, what you like to see. So that was important for them because, again, they're trying to, it's going to be tough for them to catch the Saints. But again, you just want to make sure you secure yourself one of those wild card spots. And they're in the fifth. Just again, if they would have dropped 6 and 7 now, or 7 and 6, now you're potentially you could drop below the Cardinals or somebody like that. Or like I said, the Vikings would have been tied with you at 7 and 6 as well. So like I said, that would have hurt them. And speaking of the Cardinals, they got a big win. Got the snide against the Giants. Daniel Jones was out there. Probably wasn't healthy, or didn't look healthy at all. And obviously they held the team back. If he was really that hurt, he should just let Colt McCoy play one more game and get himself right. But again, he wanted to try to come back and play. It didn't work out well, and also Hassan Reddick had himself a career day, franchise record 5 sacks and 3 forced fumbles in this game, which again against Daniel Jones is not that shocking because he does like turning the ball over from time to time. But yeah, the defense wasn't like that bad. Only gave up 26, but obviously couldn't cover DeAndre. He had 9 for 136. But the offense only mustering up 7 points. Like you're not going to win that many games when you only score 7 points, and obviously giving up 5 sacks to one guy. That's not a recipe for success at any level, especially not in the NFL. So that hurt. But again, if you're playing with a compromised quarterback, that's going to happen. So again, if he was really that compromised, he should not have been out there. But they let him play, and obviously it ended up hurting them. So that stinks. As Washington was able to get the win over the Niners in a game that could be interesting moving forward because Alex Smith was not playing well and then ended up getting hurt, so Dwayne Haskins had to come in. So we'll see kind of what that means going forward. And even in this one, their offense, like they're not really going to beat anyone probably in the playoffs, but I think they'll give teams a tough, well, definitely not Dwayne Haskins, but maybe if Alex Smith is in, at least he has some experience. But they're going to give teams trouble because that defense is legit. And what do they have? Again, Nick Mullins, take that into account. But they had 4 sacks in this game, 12 quarterback hits, 7 tackles for loss. They had a pick 6 in this one. They had a fumble return for a touchdown in this one. Recovered 2 fumbles in this game. So like I said, they got 14 points on defense, while they were only able to muster up 9 on offense. So, like I said, they also had a missed field goal in there too, so I will give them that. But like I said, that fumble return for a touchdown changed the game for them. Because Al Smith had just turned the ball over. It was like 2 minutes left. The San Francisco guys had the ball at their own 49-yard line at the time. And like I said, Nick Mullins gets sacked. He fumbles. And then Chase Young picks it up, runs the other way with it. And like I said, that was much like the Bills game where like the one defensive play kind of swung the game. That really is what swung the game in Washington's favor. And then again, they were just able to continue on with that. And then the pick 6 there, where clearly when Nick Mullins was rolling out, he thought Juszczyk was going to stay. Juszczyk moved because he was moving. Curl picked it off and went the other way with it. And like I said, that was basically all she wrote because they were down 23-7 at the time, excuse me. The Niners were able to come back and get a touchdown, but after that, they weren't really able to do a whole lot because the defense was forcing them to punt every time. So, as I said, Washington's defense is legit. They're going to be tough for whoever they play because, like I said, I still think, as you said before, I think they have the best chance. Now, we'll see what happens when they play Seattle next week. Because if they can win that one, then they basically got the NFC's locked up. In my opinion, at least. Again, I don't think it'll be officially locked, but like it'll be all but certain at that point. They can beat Seattle. Now, again, no guarantee. But if they can get pressure on Russ, that'd be big. And obviously, we'll see what happens with the quarterback position because that'll be important as well. Speaking of the Seahawks, they just smoked the Jets. Which again, I thought I saw a report. I think it was like Shaquille Griffin, the corner, said like they overlooked the Giants. They didn't take them seriously or whatever. So again, they're not going to do that twice. The 2 poor teams. So they came out obviously much more focused this week and put it on the Jets. Not surprising, but that's what it is. And again, another important game because they got to try to keep pace with the Rams in the division. Now, because now both teams are at 9-4, though the Rams technically still lead. Like I said, they got a tough team in Washington coming up next week, and then they play the Rams week 16. So this is really their season in terms of winning the division will be these next 2 games. So, like I said, they needed to make sure they didn't drop another one they shouldn't have, and this game against the Jets was that, but the Seahawks were obviously able to get the job done. And so, like I said, a lot of interesting outcomes, a lot of interesting games, a lot of interesting storylines coming out of this weekend. And obviously, we still got another game to finish on Monday. We got the Ravens-Browns, which will be a very big game, an important game for both teams as well. So we'll see kind of how the week finishes out. But like I said, a lot of interesting football going to take place over these next 3 weeks, and a lot of things that are going to be decided over the course of these next 3 weeks. So be interesting to stay tuned to and pay attention to as we continue to move forward. Speaking of moving forward, the NBA season has started up. Again, obviously not regular season, it's preseason. But then you obviously can't read a whole lot in the preseason because not everybody's playing. You're not game planning for guys. People are just getting out there doing their thing or whatever. So not that serious. But there's a couple people I saw play. Some rookies, some vets, some guys come back from injury. Some teams I saw get together and some of their key additions, how they looked with their new teams, things like that. We will discuss right after the break. So stay right there.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
And we're back here again on the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So obviously, like I said, preseason, a lot of the big names aren't really playing yet, which, I mean, they don't really have to. It is what it is. Again, it's like, again, you're just going to get yourself work back in and things like that. Like, no one's really game planning, no one's really, like, doing anything. Obviously, you're not taking it that serious as preseason. So, like I said, I'm not going to make too big of a deal about any of the games that happened so far, but some things happened that I noticed, so I wanted to touch on and wanted to talk about. So, obviously, one of the biggest returns so far was the return of KD. Hasn't played basketball since Game 5? I think that's when he got Game 5 of the 2019 finals. So it's been over a calendar year since he's played in a professional game of any caliber, preseason, regular season, postseason, bubble, non-bubble, doesn't really matter. His first time playing, and obviously wasn't overly efficient. Was 5 of 12 in the 24 minutes he got. I guess because I don't think he played that much in the second half, so I guess he played the whole first half. It was 5 of 12, 15 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. But the biggest thing is that he still looked like KD, which is what's going to be the most important thing going forward. And we'll talk about this more in the next segment when we talk about John Wall as well. We're going to talk about John Wall and how he's looked. And now he hasn't really looked like obviously he's looked like a guy that's hasn't played in a couple of years, but he doesn't look like he's not John Wall, if that makes sense. So like I said, we'll talk about that too. But like I said, the biggest question, the biggest concern, the biggest worry is that what will KD look like? I mean, also what will the Nets look like? But what will KD look like? Will he still again have the same scoring touch or feel? We still be able to take people off the dribble and things like that. And obviously his first play was a driving dunk, uncontested obviously, but a driving dunk. And again, obviously the Wizards weren't playing Bradley Beal, they weren't playing Russ. So again, not their full complement of players, but nice to see KD move around the court and look comfortable to a degree. Again, it's only his first game. You're not going to take anything or draw any major conclusions off of one game, especially in the first game over a calendar year. It'll be important to see how these guys look, and these guys are coming off injury in 2, 3, 4 months at the end of the year and the postseason, things like that. Like, how were they holding up then? But again, it was just nice to see him back out there and see like, oh, okay, he still looks like himself. And again, touching on that, obviously Kyrie was another guy that missed a lot of time last year, though he's played more recently than Kevin Durant has, obviously. But the one thing with these Nets that at least I saw in this game is that, because Kyrie was 7 of 9 for 18 points in this one with 4 assists and 2 of 3 from 3. And what I saw is a team that is going to be very tough to defend. Because even like Kyrie, some of the shots he was making, because he's a guy that makes very difficult shots. That's like his game. Again, obviously he has a great handle and great feel around the rim. But like even with this feel around the rim, like some of the layups he does with the spin and get hitting it high off the backboard and the angles he uses, like again, these are very difficult shots to make. And like even your good NBA players can't finish around the rim the way Kyrie can. And again, obviously he was hitting the jumpers and step backs and things like that today, and in this preseason game on Sunday. Like I said, seeing that and seeing them on the court together, because again you were curious to see how it was going to work. The one thing that at least was evidence to me in this one game is that if these guys like play well this year, which in theory they should, it's going to be hard for teams to defend them. Because like I said, both Kyrie and KD, much like a lot of the elite scorers in this league, make difficult shots. And like I said, that's the problem about the best players in the world, is that you can play perfect defense, you can do everything right for 23 seconds on the shot clock. They put up a shot there at the end of the shot clock, it goes in, you feel deflated. Again, that's why the Warriors can be so defeating. Because like I said, Steph can hit those kind of shots. They can swing the ball around enough, find Clay or find someone else, or when KD was there, find KD open. Like, and you play great defense for a long, extended period of time. And then, like I said, they just get a shot off, and it's a tough shot. You can test it, do everything, and it goes in. And like I said, it's the fleeting feeling. Same thing with like the Hardens of the world, or like I said, any great scorer. And if KD is who I think he could be this year, coming off his injury, and Kyrie is healthy and still Kyrie, like I said, the Nets have two guys that are almost impossible to defend. Like, what do you do with that? Because as long as one of them is on, like they should be able to get hundreds every night easy. Like, again, not even close. I mean, they had what I think. How much do they have in the first half? This one, I'm trying to see if I can find that out. How many points they had? Yeah, they had 68 in the first half. Again, Wizards, and not everybody's playing, blah blah blah. But again, that's not going to be uncommon for them, because again, not every team they play is going to be a great defensive team. And like I said, so again, they don't even need this. In this half, both guys were relatively on. But again, if just one guy's on, or like I said, Karras didn't play, like I said, if he's on, or like Spencer's on, or something like that, like they have a lot of offensive weapons now. Again, if they all play together and all of them are healthy, that's the biggest thing for the Nets, is just like, can everybody stay healthy? Because outside of those two, obviously Karras has missed some time, Spencer's missed some time. So like I said, they need to make sure everybody's healthy for majority of the season. Obviously, everybody's going to miss games here and there. Like I said, if mainly if KD combine their names, if KD and Kyrie are healthy for the majority of the year, they're going to be tough to beat. Like I said, I'm not going to go out on a limb and say they're the best team in the East or anything like that, because we haven't seen them play together. And obviously, the other teams like the Bucks, the Heat, obviously who just went to the finals, the Celtics, I've obviously put more time in and been together for longer. But again, sometimes it's just as simple as having the best players. And maybe not Kyrie, but if KD is who he, or is even like 80% of who he was on Golden State, that might be the best player in the East. And that's with the East having the back-to-back MVP in their conference. And like I said, that's enough to win 50, 60 games in theory. Again, they're going to have to play some defense too, because that's the one thing. The defense could be a little bit lacking. But like I said, they can get some defense out of there as well, and they're going to be tough to beat. So like I said, it's one game. Not going to overhype it. And so like I said, I'm not going to say they're the best team in the East or anything like that. But again, what is clear is that if these guys are hitting shots like they were hitting shots in this game, they're going to have a lot of sleepless nights for coaches and defenders the day before they take on the Nets, which is obviously, that was the part of the plan. So see how that goes. Also, like I said, coming, I guess piggybacking on the KD point, was John Wall. He's played in 2 games now with the Rockets, and he's looked good in both of them. In this game, obviously the shooting wasn't all there, but he was Had 21 points, 4 assists, still looking explosive. This was against the Bulls. And then I think, they played Friday. They played the Bulls again, obviously, but in this one, he was a little bit better, at least in his limited amount of minutes. Only played 19, but was 6 of 10 for 13 and 9. Like I said, still looking explosive, still taking people off the dribble, still finishing around the rim. And then also, like I said, the vision is still there because that's what he was. Like, he's a point guard. Obviously, he can score, but he's a point guard. He's a double-digit assist guy, or can be every night. And like I said, you were curious to see, like, oh, what is he going to look like coming off of basically 2 years, not basically, but 2 years of no basketball after tearing his Achilles and re-tearing it. And like I said, he looks about the same. You could argue again. I don't really remember a whole lot about John Wall. Pre that, obviously, I know he was good, but he doesn't look that much differently, I should say. And again, that's huge for the Rockets because, like I said, when you trade away a guy like Russ for an unknown like John Wall is coming off of the injuries he's had, you're just like, what are we getting, or what can we expect from the season? And again, 2 preseason games against the Bulls, not necessarily like a lockdown defensive team or anything like that, but. I said, you wanted to see if the explosiveness was still there. Because that's what his game was predicated on, was explosiveness. And like I said, that is still there. So that is important moving forward. Because like, oh, okay, if he can be this, then like, maybe that convinces Harden, like, hey, maybe we have a decent team. Maybe we should, maybe I should run it back with you guys and see what me and John Wall and Boogie can do. And maybe that convinces him to be like, maybe I don't want to trade. Or maybe seeing John Wall again, preseason, but seeing John Wall convinces them, like, you know what? We don't got to deal with this Harden stuff. Yeah, obviously you're going to be worse without Harden. Of course you are. So like I said, that's not what the worry is, but it's just like, do we want to have to deal with the headache all year? Just like, or if we lose a couple of games, things like, because obviously John Wall in some of the comments, he talked about how well the chemistry has been with these guys and how they've been developing off the court and like how, and things like that. And again, you don't want a guy like, cause I know obviously they said they were okay with getting weird. But, like, why get weird if you don't have to? Like I'm saying, like, if James Harden doesn't want to be there, and like, if that is in fact true, like, why bring him in there and mess with the chemistry that these guys have been trying to build, in his absence? Again, obviously, you'd be a worse basketball team for it. But again, as long as you get something nice back, that you could still be a solid team. Maybe not like an elite team in the West, but still a playoff caliber team. Which again, I mean, you could argue if the Rockets are an elite team now anyway. So, like I said, that really wouldn't change that much, obviously, instead of being like 3 through 6, maybe you're more on the 7-8 range. But still, like I said, if you get a decent piece back and John Wall is who he was, and Boogie is like something close. I don't know what Boogie is going to look like. Obviously, he hasn't looked bad either in these 2 games, hitting threes, things like that. So he's looked good in these 2 games as well. But again, 2 preseason games, not a whole lot. Not a lot. He was better in the first one than the second one. At least from the field and shooting and things like that. But, like I said, it's like, do we really want to deal with this James Harden stuff if we don't have to? Like I said, maybe John Wall and Boogie and seeing them coming off injury will convince them, like, maybe we could trade him away to the Heat and get, like, Tyler Hero or somebody back. Maybe we could trade away him to the Bucks and get, like, a Chris Middleton back or something. Or, obviously, I don't think they'll be able to get Ben Simmons. But, again, if you can, like, hey, maybe they'll try to do that. Like, I don't know. I guess I don't know, but it is important for them that John Wall has looked pretty good because again, you weren't really sure what you were getting. Though I know he said he's been feeling good. Apparently, been looking good in like the different workouts and runs he'd been doing with NBA guys in the offseason and things like that, trying to get himself back right and healthy. And obviously, some of the workout videos you saw, like he was looking explosive. But again, they're videos, and like empty gym, no defenses, things like that. Or even like again the little 5-on-5 run they do is not the same as an NBA game. So there is that. But like I said, I thought both of those guys, John Wall and KD, coming off injuries, look pretty good. Which again will bring me to my next point, which we'll talk about in the next segment. So also I want to talk about LaMelo. He had his first. Then again, obviously he wasn't the only rookie, but he had his first appearance in the NBA on Saturday against the Hornets, and this provided the team a little bit of a spark. Again, obviously didn't do a whole lot of scoring himself. Actually had 0 points. But he had 10 rebounds, 4 assists, some very nice dimes, a couple nice ones on the fast break and on like a nice little outlet pass, things like that. So again, the scoring, you want to kind of get that together. You don't want him to be playing and getting 0 points. That's not ideal. But like I said, the vision is clearly there, and the rebounding is going to be great for a point guard. So like I said, I don't know if it'll be like the Russ situation where I average like a triple double or anything like that, especially not as a rookie. But again, when you can have your point guard grab the rebound and immediately start the fast break or start pushing it up, that just speeds everything up for your offense. And again, not only that, but again, he gets the ball, and instead of having to get a pass from it, he can just get the ball, look up, and see, like, all right, where do I want to go with the ball? Or even, like I said, maybe before he gets the rebound, he knows, all right, I know this guy he's already going to be down there, or like, I know this guy's coming up the wing that way. Like, again, you can, if you're like that with, like, the vision and your prediction and your anticipation and things like that, like, you can be a step ahead of the defense. So you just get the rebound, boom, turn, and fire it up court without even having to really think about it. Like I said, it's like some of the passes he made in that game were pretty nice. Like I said, you saw some of the traits. Like obviously the scoring needs to be improved, but like I said, you saw the traits from a rebounding standpoint, you saw the traits from a passing standpoint. And that's why he got drafted as high as he did. Or because some of those traits, especially at the young age that he has, and obviously for his size and things like that, at the point guard position. So, like I said, wasn't a spectacular game from him, but it obviously definitely provided them with a little bit of a spark. And like I said, the rebounding was on full display, and the passing ability was on full display. Still had some turnovers, though. Had 4 turnovers in the game, but again, it's preseason. You're not really that stressed about it yet. But like I said, you wanted to see some good traits and good things from him, and that was nice to see in that game. And also, I guess the last thing I'll talk about, because obviously there was a lot of things that happened. But the one other thing I saw, because obviously the Lakers have played the Clippers in back-to-back games. And it's clear that their new additions are going to be very big for them moving forward. Like in the first game, again, preseason, but Montrezl Harrell looked good at 13 and 12 in that game. And in this last game, Marc Gasol, again, and not that he was like spectacular or anything like that, but it's clear that having a big man that you can actually do things with offensively outside just like post them up and have them make shots. I mean, make some, I'm not say lucky shots, but just make some shots here and there, is going to be big. Because then he had 5 assists in this game, but even just like his overall just like basketball intelligence and his passing ability is going to open up a new dynamic with this offense that they didn't have last year. Like I said, your center basically on the team last year was just basically just down in the post, set some screens, catch alley-oops, maybe get a post up here and there. Like he wasn't really an integral part of your offense. That's why there are a lot of their best lineups involved. Well, that's with McGee in there. A lot of their best lineups involved AD at the 5. Or, like I said, they needed like a Dwight in there for defense once it was clear McGee was giving them nothing offensively. And like I said, even with Dwight in there, like he's not doing a whole lot. He's not handling the ball out on the wing. He's not shooting threes. Potentially, he's not like I said, he's not facilitating the offense. You're not running the offense through him on certain possessions like you could with a Marc Gasol. So like I said, that's going to add a whole new dynamic to that team. On top of the fact that Taylor or Horton Tucker is pushing to get some rotation minutes. Again, this preseason, you don't really know, but he had 33 in this most recent game, 10 assists, hit 4 threes. Not to say he's going to do that every week, but every game, I should say. But the guy in his second year was with the team last year. Didn't really obviously play a whole lot, but he was with the team last year. And again, now he's trying to push for like, hey, look, just find some 15, 20 minutes, whatever it is. Now, I'm not saying you should start or do anything like that, but like he's trying to show like, hey, look, I can be an integral part of this team and his rotation. And I said it's gonna. I think Frank Vogel even said that he's gonna make things tough for him because again, they have a lot of guys in the rotation. Like LeBron and AD both haven't played yet. So like I said, you got those 2 guys. You still got Schroeder, still got Wesley Matthews, still got Caruso. Still got KCP. So like I said, that's and obviously Morris and Kuzma and Gasol. Like I said, Montrez. Like that's already like 10, 11 guys. So like I said, I don't know where Horton Tucker's going to fit in there, but again, he's showing that like, hey, look, I should be in there somewhere. I don't know where that's your job to figure it out, but like I should be in there somewhere. So like I said, shout out to him because I guess he clearly worked on his game during a little bit of off season or was putting in work during the bubble or whatever. But like he's a good now. So like I said, some of their new additions are obviously going to add a new dynamic to this team. which again is why I would, at this point, you probably have to take them over. I mean, again, the field is obviously much bigger, and there's much potential there, but like right now, like you can't, if these new additions continue to play the way they've looked in these first 2 preseason games, which again is preseason, not really going to put a whole lot of stake in it. But again, if they can continue to look like this, then it's hard for us to say like if there's a better team in the NBA than the Lakers right now. Obviously, with LeBron still being LeBron, AD still being AD, and then like I said, adding in Wesley Matthews, adding in Dennis Schroeder, adding in Montrezl Harrell, adding in Marc Gasol to go with KCP, to go with the Morris, to go with Kuzma already. Like I said, go with Caruso. Like I said, that rotation is very solid. So, like I said, we'll see what happens. But like that was just a couple of things I wanted to touch on. Like I said, obviously a lot more happened. There were a lot of games this weekend, and also let's see Steph back. I will say that too. Nice to have him back out there. Obviously, he did play a little bit last year, but it was very, very short lived. But nice to see him back out there, hitting shots, making threes. Just like again, you want to see the best players in the league back out there on the court. So that was kind of cool to see as well, him back out there. Though obviously with no Clay, no Draymond out there, but still, it was nice to see. So, as we talked about a lot in the segment with KD and John Wall, it got me thinking about how I think we need to change our expectations when we see players in, whether it's basketball, football, baseball, whatever, WNBA, like what have you, and change the way we view these quote unquote serious injuries. I think, like I said, I'll explain to you why, but I think we need to change the way we as a society or we as the public view these injuries and how impactful they would be on these players' careers. So we discussed that right after the break. Stay right there.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
At guys like John Wall and like KD, who are coming back from both from Achilles injuries, but are coming back from very serious injuries, long layoffs. You always wonder, all right, what are they going to look like? Again, we've only seen them in 2 preseason games for John Wall and 1 for KD, so not going to cast sweeping opinions or declarations about them or their health and how well they'll play and if they'll even stay healthy throughout the entire year because we just don't know the future. But at least from what we saw in these first games, is that they still look like themselves, which I think is the biggest story, and obviously was going to be the biggest story regardless. It's just like, how do they look compared to how they looked before? And like I said, them looking like themselves, coming off of serious Achilles injuries, I think should be important in the future as we look back at these things. Because again, everybody thinks like, oh, we have an Achilles injury in basketball, or when you have like a torn ACL, or when you have like or when you were used to, or like when you had Tommy John surgery in baseball, like they're like, oh, this is so bad. Like again, that this could be, or at least we used to look like it as like, oh, this could be career altering. Like we don't know how they're going to look. We don't know how they'll come back from this. Blah blah blah. And I feel like we have vastly underestimated as a society and as a general public the advancements in medical science. Have greatly underestimated it. Because like I said, when you look at another basketball player, a woman, so obviously the athleticism is different, but when you look at a player like Breonna Stewart, who had his Achilles tear, just like KD did. Obviously, not like John Wall did, because again, he tore it, then retore it. So a little bit different. But you look at her, she missed all of 2019. She was, unfortunately, coming back from a very serious injury. And what did she do when she came back? Oh, she only averaged 19.7 points, with 8.3 rebounds, shot 45% from the field, 37% from three, and 89% from the free throw line, while being an all-defensive player, or an all-defensive team player, while being an all-NBA, or WNBA, player, and winning Finals MVP and leading the Seattle Storm to the Finals, obviously. He won Finals MVP. So again, not exactly her MVP self, because in her MVP year, she averaged almost 22 points on 53% shooting from the field, 41% from three, and 82% from the free throw line, while averaging 8.4 rebounds and 2.5 assists. But like I said, her assists went up. She was at 3.6 this year, 1.7 steals, 1.3 blocks. So like her steals went up, her blocks went down a little bit. Like I said, her rebounds are about the same, and obviously she shot much better from the free throw line, but lower from the field. So again, was she exactly who she was before? No. Again, and maybe she will be this upcoming season, or like we really won't know. But the thing was that she wasn't not herself. That makes sense. Like again, still compared to herself and compared to other WNBA players, she was still one of the best. And it was just like, well, until you wonder, it's like, oh, how is she going to come back? How is she going to come back? How is she going to look? How is she going to play? And again, she wasn't exactly an MVP, because obviously she didn't win, but she wasn't that much worse. She wasn't that much worse. And I feel like that's the important part of this story to me. And like I said, and that's an important part of the way we look at these things, is that like you see a player and you hear that they have a such and such of an injury. And you're like, oh Lord, how are they going to be? It's the same thing with Clay. Like I said, I can understand that, because again, he was different, because he tore his ACL, then like tore his Achilles. So again, two different parts of the leg. You always wonder like, oh, how are these guys going to come back? How are these guys going to come back? And again, no one's exactly going to be, very rarely, are you the exact same player or better than you were before. Obviously, Adrian Peterson's an anomaly in that regard. And what he did coming back from his ACL tear, and could come back being an MVP at the running back position, especially. But like I said, I think we overstate how much these injuries impact these players in this day and age. Like I said, I'm not trying to sit here and come out and say like, these injuries don't matter. That they're like, oh, it's no big deal. Like, no, because these are big deals. There's a lot of rehab involved. There's long timetables involved, including just to get back, even get back onto the field, let alone again, or just even get back to train or rehab or practice or go to physical therapy. Because that, and like I said, that's well before you get back into a game or a practice or a scrimmage or things like that. So again, I'm not going to sit here and say like, these injuries are no big deal and no one should care. But my point is that like, I feel like we need to be like, oh, when you see these things, you're like, oh, this isn't like a massive blow to their career the same way it would be. Again, now, so you miss a whole year. Most of these cases. So like I said, that is a big blow, because even a season out of their career that's done, and that they won't be able to play. So that in and of itself is big. But like I said, when you see these guys, like when you see football players, like there's ACL tears every single year. Every single year. Some guys have torn it multiple times in their career. Like I said, look at a player like Deshaun Watson. He tore it once in college. He might even tore it in high school, but I know he tore it once in college and once in the pros. And he came back, did not look any different at all. Like he's been just as good both in college and in the pros as he was before his ACL tear. And Thomas Davis, who was with the Panthers for all those years, like tore his ACL like twice, I believe, too, during his career. And again, he had a long career, was very good for most of it. So like I said, and there are obviously other cases, like they said, the AP, like he tore his ACL, came back, was MVP. So like I said, I'm not saying that like it's not a big blow. I'm not saying like it's not a big deal with these kind of injuries, like whatever they are, like whether it's a shoulder, whether it's a knee, whether it's an ankle, whatever. Like I'm not saying these injuries aren't big deals, but I feel like we need to realize like, hey, look, they're like you can come back from this and be fine. That's what everybody's worried is like, oh, how's he gonna look? How's he gonna look? How's he gonna play? Like, oh, is he gonna lose this? Is he gonna lose that? And I'm saying like with the advancements in medicine, generally speaking, I don't feel like he's going to lose, or she is going to lose that much. And again, another Achilles one, but I know Brandon Brooks, guard from the Eagles, again, a little bit different, but he's also a bigger guy. He tore his Achilles in the Saints playoff game, and I think what was this, 2018? Yeah, 2018. And so early 2019, came back, played, was ready to go from week 1 of the 2019 season, obviously last year. Played all 16 games, obviously got hurt in the Giants game. Separate situation. And was just as good, if not better, than he's ever been. And again, this is a guy that's over 300 pounds. Like, and then those are kind of like, again, people of that size and that's not supposed to be able to come back from these injuries the same. And again, he looked just as good as he's ever looked. Now, again, obviously, maybe he didn't get the accolades or whatever he deserved for it, but again, he was very, very good last year. And that's, again, a guy that's over 6 feet tall and over, 300 pounds doing this and looking like still being mobile, still able to move, still able to get out in space. Like I said, still had the power to blow people off the ball, things like that. Like, he did not look any different. So I'm saying, again, it's 1 game for KD, it's 2 games for John Wall. But these guys still look like themselves. And I feel like that's something that we need to accept more often, is that, like, these guys aren't going to, no one can come back from this at this size. Like, we don't know how it's going to affect them. Like, I mean, what did it? Like, KD had the Liz Frank or whatever, I believe, in his foot. In I think, what was it, 2015? I mean, has he looked any worse since then? I mean, obviously, he hasn't won another MVP, but has he looked significantly worse? No, you could argue. At the time he got hurt, he was playing some of the best basketball of his life in that playoffs. Didn't he drop 50 on the Clippers in that first round? Obviously won multiple finals MVP. Like, he's playing great basketball after having a major foot injury. Rouse, again, has had surgeries on his knees for years. And again, he can't shoot. Well, he was never really a great shooter, but he can't really shoot anymore. But he's maybe not as explosive, but still high level explosiveness. It's still there after getting multiple knee surgeries since obviously the unfortunate incident with Patrick Beverley, and I guess this was the 2013 playoffs. So the year after they went to the finals. So 2012, 2013 playoffs. Ever since that unfortunate injury, he's had to have surgery, he's had to get his knee drained or scoped or cleaned or whatever you want to call it. And like I said, his explosiveness is still very much there. Again, he's also old, he's getting older. So again, obviously he's not going to be able to do all the things he can do at 23, 24, 25, now in his 30s. But that's not because, I mean, maybe you could say it's because of the wear and tear on the knee, but again, in the immediate aftermath, he was still as explosive. That's what I'm saying. When you see more of these guys come back, and like I said, same thing with ACLs in football, like guys come back from this, and they're relatively the same. You see Tommy John in baseball. I mean, now at this point, you basically want your young pitcher to get Tommy John surgery earlier, so you can lose a year earlier as opposed to later on in the career when they're much more important to the team. Like, before, Tommy John was like, oh, this is a big deal. Like, I don't know how a person will ever be able to recover. And now, like I said, people get Tommy John surgery, come back throwing harder than they did prior. So it's not, like I said, it's not necessarily the career death sentence that it was. Like, and even like you look at a guy like Kobe, RIP, like he tore his Achilles at an older age, came back and was still, I mean, he was an older Kobe, obviously. He wasn't exactly prime Kobe, but he's still was still good enough to drop 60 in his final game. And that's a guy in his late 30s that tore his Achilles. So again, it's not I feel as if people always say it's like, oh, how's this guy going to look? How's he going to come back? I said the same thing with John Wall. Like, how's he going to look? What's he going to look like? And I just feel like you got to say, all right, is he going to be exactly the same? No, probably not. Obviously, like, that's fair. But in terms of, is he going to be significantly worse? Like, no, I think we have enough examples of people coming back and being near to what they were before, if not just as good. And to realize that, hey, look, these major surgeries, major injuries aren't the same, like I said, death sentence to a career, death sentence to a young athlete that they were in the 80s and the 90s. Like I said, when you're talking about guys that, oh, so nobody this size is able to come back from this, or you see other guys who earlier, and again, not to say that careers can't hamper or derail a career, because that obviously is still true even now. Like that happens still to this day. Like that's not my point. My point is that like these major injuries, these major surgeries, don't necessarily mean that these guys are never going to be the same. And again, obviously, if you have like major surgery, like you have like the Alex Smith situation, even him, like again, he doesn't look that much worse. Again, he's probably just less mobile, less willing to move, but he doesn't look like that much worse as a quarterback coming in this year as he did prior. So like I said, even somebody like him, like you can still, he had a near amputation of his leg, and still came back and looked like a solid quarterback, relatively speaking. So like I said, it's not even something like that where it's like the most severe. Like I said, you've seen it with the Paul George of the world with his injury. He came back, had had his best season of his career after that. Gordon Hayward has taken him a little bit more time to get back, but also again, he was in a situation where he wasn't the focal point anymore. Obviously, Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and those kind of guys, Kemba, like they had new guys come in trying to take his spot. Man, even him, he's still been a very productive player since his major injury. Just like I said, it's these major injuries that we think of and like, oh, it's got to never be the same. I think due to advancements in medicine, while it's kind of true, is not true in the sense of like this person's career is doomed now kind of situation. And I feel like that's a lot of the way people think. Like, oh, like I said, when KD got hurt, they're like, oh, well, like I said, he's not going to be KD anymore. Like, no, he's still probably going to be KD. Like, oh, John Wall's going to lose his explosiveness. Again, is he maybe going to be as explosive over an 82-game season? No, we'll have to wait and see on that. But, like, in terms of just, like, his overall athletic ability, like, no, he's still explosive. He's still explosive. He's still very much explosive. As like I said, I think, like I said, just we need to temper or lower our level of caution when these major injuries happen. And again, they're not big deals, not that they aren't important, but again, we've seen enough examples of players, especially now in this day and age, coming back from major injuries and still being themselves and not very close to themselves to be like, you know what, this is bad. I'm not saying like tearing ACL isn't bad, tearing Achilles isn't bad, and nothing like that, breaking like a bone or an ankle or things like that isn't bad. Like it's definitely bad. It's very bad. You don't want to wish it upon anyone. But, like I said, it's not the death blow to your career that it maybe would have been 15, 20 years ago in the same type of way. Like I said, these guys can come back from these things because of the advancements in medicine and how good physical therapy is and how good the rehabs are now and how good the trainers are now and the athletic directors and not athletic directors, the athletic trainers and things like that. And also, the important thing is time. Like I said, don't rush these guys back. And I think that's another thing we're going to see. Obviously, John Wall is different because he got hurt twice, but like I said, KD, I honestly believe he could have played in the bubble last year. 100%. I believe it was a full year since he had his surgery and everything. I think he could have played in the bubble. Or I guess, well, earlier this year, I should say. I mean, they were like, you know what, we're not gonna rush it. And I think that's the biggest story, is that like, again, everybody heals differently and everybody reacts to treatments and surgery differently. Like I said, the biggest story to me is just like, give these guys time to get healthy. Like, don't rush them back. Don't force them to get back. Don't push them to get back. Like, give them the time to be like, you know what? I'm ready when I'm ready. I mean, I'm not ready yet. Like, the same thing happened with Kawhi, and obviously he's had the little issue with his knee and stuff like that. But Kawhi sat out probably longer than he needed to do, and what did that lead to? Him winning a championship the next year. Again, load managing, but he still was able to load manage his way to a championship the next year. As this says, so I think that's almost as big of a story as this. It's just like, give these players time to get back to themselves and let them decide how long they need to take. Don't be like, hey, look, you have this, like, you're going to be back in this amount of time. Like, hey, if I want to take longer, let me take longer. And don't, like I said, don't force anything on me. Don't rush me. And I think that's what another interesting aspect of this will be, is just like how teams handle these type of injuries going forward. Knowing that, hey, look, like, you can be fine in like 7-8 months after this, but like, will they give these guys 9, 10, 11 months if that's what they feel like they need for their body? And like I said, that'll be what's important. Again, obviously, you risk losing games, losing money, things like that. But I think that'll be another interesting aspect of this. Is like, are all these teams, all these franchises, all these organizations willing to take the time out to be like, hey, look, I need a full 11 months, I need a full 12 months before I feel comfortable getting back on the floor. As opposed to, again, maybe with surgery and everything, I only need necessarily 9 or 10 months to be back. Like, let me take the full 12 to make sure I'm back. kind of thing. So that's, again, that'll be interesting thing to see. But like I said, when you see these guys playing, you see these players come back. These major injuries aren't, like I said, the as big of a blow as we thought of them 15, 20 years ago. Shout out to advancements in medicine. Definitely helping out a lot of in more ways than one, for sure. So before, like I said, we got a couple more segments coming up, and we got to talk about it. You know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm talking about. Obviously, we're talking about college football, and we got to talk about Florida literally throwing away their chance at getting into the college football playoff. So we discussed that among a few other games and outcomes and different storylines from this past weekend in college football. So we discussed all of those right after the break. Stay right there.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Florida, LSU. Easily the surprise of the weekend. Well, I don't want to say easily, but definitely my surprise of the weekend. There's probably another game in here that maybe just the margin of outcome could be a little bit more surprising. But for me, this was the surprise of the weekend. Obviously, LSU had come in playing poorly. They had a freshman quarterback in there, Max Johnson, who had played in 4 other games, all losses. Oh, 3 other games, excuse me. All losses. Played against Auburn. They only put up 11 points. Played against Texas A&M. They only scored 7 points. And then played against Alabama. And they got smoked in that one as well. So like I said, very limited experience. Very limited stats. I've never really been all that great in any of his starts, really. But again, he was the guy that they were tasked with. Obviously, they had a lot of injuries. Derek Stingley wasn't out there. I think they were missing a linebacker as well. That's not even including the opt-outs that they've had, with Jamar Chase not playing, Terrence Marshall not playing. I think Amric, I think that's how you pronounce it. No, Eric. Well, Eric with an A. With the tight end prospect. That was a big-time recruit that opted out as well. I believe he's going to transfer. And yet and still, they came into Gainesville and offensively put up 37 on Florida, which would end up being enough to win the game. So yeah, this kid, Max Johnson, had 239 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air. They didn't really do much on the ground. Ran for 179 on 50 carries, which isn't like nothing. But in terms of like a scoring standpoint, didn't have any rushing touchdowns. But what turned out to be big early in this game was they got a pick 6 by, I believe, freshman Eli Ricks. Because they were playing a lot of young guys, obviously, because there's very limited amount of people available due to the injuries and things like that. So yeah, freshman Eli Ricks, who now has 4 interceptions on the year. So shout out to him, having a solid having a solid freshman campaign and everything that's going on. So he got a pick 6 early off Kyle Trask that made the score 14-7. And LSU was able to take the lead, or take a 24-17 lead into the half. Even like I said, Florida was putting up points, but like I said, it turned out to not be enough. The second half, again, you started to see the offense for Florida started moving. You're like, oh, okay, this is where they're going to figure it out. They were leading 31-27, heading to the fourth. So you're like, all right, you know what, Florida's got it. It took them a little bit of a while. They may not, cover. I think they were like 20-plus point favorites or something like that. Just something like kind of wild. So they're not going to cover the spread or whatever. But like, hey, look, they'll still probably win the game. And then, like I said, Max Johnson comes back, has a nice touchdown pass early in the fourth quarter. And then, like I said, you got some defense being played after that. Bunch of punts back and forth. And this is also, I think, when it was starting to get a little foggy, too. But yeah, punts back and forth. The Florida offense was really able to muster up a whole lot. Then they were able to get a field goal drive. And then, obviously, you have the infamous field goal drive from LSU. So, they were up 34-31 after the touchdown. Like I said, Florida ties the game at 34-34. LSU has a 3rd and 10. Max Johnson completes a pass for 4 yards. And I guess somehow the receiver's shoe falls off. For whatever reason, cannot explain to you why, Marco Wilson, in celebration, decides, I'm going to chuck this guy's cleat 20 yards down the field. No logical explanation for this. Just completely undisciplined, completely unnecessary. I'm not saying I haven't seen guys like throw shoes or cleats or whatever, or like towels or whatever. But no, I'm like, again, you chuck it to the side, or you drop it a little bit, or maybe you just like, with towel, you might just take it. But I was like, no, I've never seen somebody like pick up a shoe and just like chuck it. Like in basketball, football, doesn't matter. I've never seen a guy pick up a shoe and chuck it before in my life. I can't say I've ever seen anyone do this in my life. And like I said, I've been playing sports since I was like 5, maybe a little bit earlier. I played soccer like when I was like 3 or 4. So I've been playing sports since from then until like up and through high school. Watched sports since I was that age up until now. And I'm in my mid-20s now. So like I said, I've never seen anything like this before. And then of course, because that's just how these sports things go, of course after this 15-yard penalty, that took the LSU from their own 29 to now their own 44, that they were able to put together a nice little drive, got a first down from there, and then were able to get into field goal range enough where the kicker, Cade York, was able to knock through a 57-yard field goal in the fog to give the team the lead. Now, again, the untoward conduct didn't necessarily lose them the game because LSU still had the drive and the kicker still had to make a 57-yard kick. So again, shout out to LSU for doing that. But, like, what are we doing? Like I said, you have a chance to play Alabama in the SEC championship game for a shot at the college football playoff if you win that game. That is what was at stake in this game. You knew that coming in, and obviously, again, you were already more competitive with LSU than you should have been. So that was already bad. But again, all right, you get the stop. And you're going to give the ball back to your offense with Kyle Trask and Tony and then like the playmakers you have out on that offense. Heisman favorite. All you need to do is put together a drive and you kick a field goal and you win the game. And like as bad as you played and as close as this game was, hey, look, you can walk out of here with the win and then just like go for it with Alabama. But nope, you decided you're going to chuck a shoe and you end up losing. And again, they had a shot there. They were able to get the ball down to the LSU 33-yard line. And unfortunately for them, their kicker, McPherson, missed the 51-yard, which, yeah, not easy, but again, when you probably make a 57-yard, you're like, hey, maybe you could. Like I said, the fog, I was watching the kick. I don't even know how the announcers could see where the ball was. I've watched replays of it and everything. I still don't know where the ball was. All I know is that apparently he missed. And Florida lost, and now, like I said, that SEC championship game is like basically pointless for them at this point. Like all you can really do now is spoil Alabama's chance of the playoff. And again, I don't know because I'm not saying they didn't look ahead to Alabama. I think that is a very real possibility, seeing as bad as LSU had been this year. I'm not saying I understand it, but I could see why guys would be like, you know what, we'll come in, we'll beat this team, like they're banged up, like they're playing a lot of young guys, like it's whatever. But like I said, very early in the game, you could realize like, oh, this game's going to be a problem for Florida. Like you realize that very early on. And it says I think it was right when the pick six happened. I was like, ooh, okay. Florida, like it might be time to show up. Like I said, then when the LSU took a 7-point lead in the half, I was like, oh yeah, Florida clearly overlooked this team and was worried about Alabama. And it wouldn't surprise me at all. Dan Mullen, all those guys, like I see them being like, you know what, we'll just breeze through this game, get out a nice easy win, and then we'll get ready to play Alabama. So like I said, I'm not even going to go as far as say that the brothers was watching Alabama film over LSU film this week, but I could tell that you can always tell when a team overlooked their opponent. They really didn't take them as seriously as they should. College, professional, doesn't matter. You can always sense it. Again, sometimes it doesn't matter. Sometimes you end up winning the game in the end, but like you can tell when a team's not focused. When a team that clearly is not as talented as you, not to say LSU shouldn't be on the field with them, but again, you get the point. Like they have less talent, they're banged up, playing a lot of young guys. For a team with as many veterans and juniors and seniors and stuff that Florida has, this game should never have been this close to where it comes down to 57-yard kick or it comes down to an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. But it did because they were on top of their game. And now, like I said, that's the championship game for them. Even if they win, doesn't even matter. Like they could beat Alabama, and Alabama will still get in the playoff before they would. Like that's how crazy it is. I'm not saying that Alabama 100% would, but they get in before Florida would. I can promise you that. So yeah, like I said, that's a tough one. Speaking of Alabama, they put up 52 points on Arkansas, just for fun, really. Mac Jones didn't even have himself a good game. Like they were just letting, like I said, Najee Harris had like 2 touchdowns. Robinson had 3 touchdowns. McLean, a guy I don't even think he really even get in like that, had a touchdown. Devontae Smith had a punt return touchdown just for fun because he was like, I'm not really going to catch any balls today. Like I've done enough. It's fine. The defense had like 8 sacks. Like it was just like they were a team that because Nick Saban wouldn't allow it. I'm not to say they haven't played poor games against bad teams before, but like I said, once the first quarter was over, then they just went out, scored. 4 touchdowns. They were up 38-3 by halftime. And like I said, that was all she wrote. So, like I said, one team you see looking ahead, another team like being prepared. So that was nice. Speaking of, I don't know about looking ahead, but speaking of team not being as prepared as they should have been, Miami. Don't know what happened in this one. They clearly left the defense at home because they were down 34-10 at halftime. And they got, let me make sure this math is right. 554 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns put on them. They had 2 separate backs. It's not like it was the Buffalo Patterson game where it was like, this one guy, he just dominated. No. They had 2 separate backs run for over 230 yards on them. Williams had 236 and 3 touchdowns. Carter had 308 and 2 touchdowns. Both had long as 65 yards. Like that's almost an unfathomable amount of rushing yards put on you. Again, and this is not like some like lower division school or some like overmatched bottom of the conference like Power 5 school. Like no, there's a top 10 team at home in their last regular season game getting 500 plus rushing yards put on their head top. 554 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns. Sam Howell didn't even have to do anything. Just hand the ball off. There were massive holes everywhere. Guys were breaking tackles. Guys were running through the secondary. Safeties couldn't catch them. Corners couldn't catch them. Linebackers couldn't touch them. It was wild. Honestly, they gave up 62 points. And again, not to say North Carolina's a bad team because they're 8-3 on the year. Like they've had games where if their offense showed up a little bit better when their defense did, because that defense showed up against Notre Dame, defense showed up against which game was it? No, I guess it was really just Notre Dame, honestly. And showed up against Miami, obviously. But again, if their offense or their defense showed up a little bit more in the Florida State game, especially in that first half, if it showed up a little bit more in that Virginia game, like maybe they would have a shot at playing for the ACC championship game. I mean, probably not because Notre Dame's undefeated and Clemson only has 1 loss. But still, you never know. If they only have 1 loss, like hey, maybe they could have gotten in over Clemson. Like you never know. But like I said, maybe they would have beat Notre Dame. Like again, things would have been a lot different if in a couple of games the defense showed up earlier. Won a couple games where the defense did show up, their offense showed up. Like I said, the Notre Dame game being the one in particular. They only scored 17 in that game. But yeah, just a terrible way for the season to end. for Miami. I think their next game is Georgia Tech has already been canceled. So, like I said, that's just not how you want to end the season. Like that's embarrassing, honestly. 500 rushing yards. 500. Like, again, if a guy, like, throws for 500-600 yards and yards, like, sometimes your receivers or your corners are just overmatched. Like, there's not much you can do. Like, 500 rushing yards means that you were getting blown off the ball, means you're getting blocked, means you were missing tackles, that means you were taking poor angles, you were getting blocked down the field by the receivers. Like it was, like that's demoralizing to get that many rushing yards put on you. I can only imagine. Like, passing, like, sometimes there's just nothing you can do. Like, you may be in good position, you may be playing good defense, and like I said, the receiver just makes a better play, the quarterback just makes a better throw. Like, it happens. Yeah, not to the tune of like 500-600 yards, but sometimes it happens. Like, rushing for 500 yards? But two guys going over 230 yards, like, again, it's not like you just got dominated by one man. It was two separate running backs, both had over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns on. And one guy had over 300. Like, that's wild. But yeah, shout out to North Carolina. Mac Brown, building a little something down there. Miami, on the other hand, we're too worried about the drip. That's what happens. Again, you overlook the game, and you worry about other things. Again, they were posting the drip. They had, I think it was all black they had on. Uniforms looking good. I'm not gonna lie to you. It looked good. But you know what would make it look better? If they got the dub. I can promise you the drip would look better. And would be more memorable if they got the dub. Now, no one cares about the drip. You got embarrassed. Like, now you just look good and you're trash. Like, that's, like, who wants to be a nicely dressed trash bag? Like, that's not fun. Like, a gold trash bag is still trash. Like, that's not enjoyable at all. So, yeah, that was embarrassing. See what else. North Carolina. USC. Obviously, they won. They're going to be in the Pac-12 championship game and all that fun stuff. But, like, can they play, like, a normal game? Like, 3 of their games have come down to the wire now, with them needing last-second touchdowns, basically, to win all 3 of them. Obviously, the 2 other games against Washington State and Utah were not nearly as close. But, again, against UCLA team, again, young, inexperienced, like, they were down early, down 14-0, and then down 21-10, heading into halftime. And then they were down 35-23 heading into the fourth. But then, apparently in the fourth quarter, that's when Keaton Slovis and the USC Trojans, that's when they come alive. Got a couple touchdowns to take the lead with like 8 minutes left. And then UCLA is able to put together a drive, to where they were able to get a field goal. First they had put together a drive, turn the ball over on down, on 4th down, 4th and 8. They end up punting. And then, no, take that back, it's the wrong team. No, yeah, the 4th and 1. They tried to run up the middle. Or, no, they tried to run it. I don't forget if it was up the middle. They tried to run it, did not work. Then USC has to punt it back. Then they drive on field, get the go-ahead field goal with like a minute 52 seconds left, I should say. And at that point, you're like, oh, wow, USC, like, they screwed this up. Like, they had their shot, and they weren't able to get enough stops when it was necessary. And you're like, oh, what? They screwed this up. Big time. But nope. UCLA was like, we screwed it up too. So I think that they gave up like a 56-yard kickoff return. And right then I was like, oh, USC's going to win. Like, that was right then. I'm like, oh, of course USC's going to win. Yeah, they get like literally like one pass play down the right sideline to Tyler Vaughn's and down to the 8. A nice little catch going over the defender. And then next play was a touchdown to Amon-Ra St. Brown in the end zone. USC wins. Like I said, that game was nuts. It was a game that USC had really no business winning. I mean, no business losing. No, I take it back. USC had no business winning. I said that right the first time. UCLA had no business losing. And it was a situation where, like, you could argue, like, the better team lost, which, again, happens from time to time, but like I said, USC did not play that well in that game. Their defense was not that good. Their offense, like I said, took a while to get started. Slovis threw 2 interceptions. Like, it wasn't great, but at the end of the day, they got the dub, and they go into the Pac-12 championship game. So we'll see what happens next week when they play. I think they play on Friday against Washington. We'll see what happens there, but that was a wild one. So again, shout out to USC, at least for giving us very interesting games throughout the entirety of the season. Speaking of interesting, I know Arizona got 70 put on them this weekend. Kevin Sumlin ended up getting fired again because you can't give up 70 points. This was on Friday too. Can't give up 70 points here to your in-state rival. Like that can't happen. Well, 70-7. Like, that's embarrassing. Like I said, and it was bad. Like, they were down 42-7.5, down 63-7 by the end of the third quarter. Like, they just couldn't do anything on offense. And Kevin Sumlin's supposed to be an offensive guy. Like, he had to get let go. Also, shout out to Utah getting a big win over Colorado. Their season's been like kind of up and down with all the cancellations and stuff. Then say another game next week against Washington State, but they, like I said, they were able to get a win over Oregon State last week, and then a win over Colorado, who's a top 25 ranked team in this one. Even though Jerry Rice's son had a very good day, he had a touchdown catch and a punt return. So shout out to him. He played well, but the rest of the team, not so much. So that stinks. And anything else? Let me see. Anything else interesting that happened? Coastal Carolina going to finish the regular season undefeated. Shout out to them. Their game against Troy was definitely probably more close than they thought it was going to be, and they needed a touchdown there late as well. Like I said, after giving up a touchdown with like a minute 20 left, I think it was a similar situation. They had a nice kick return, and that's what I'm saying. You can't take the lead and then give up a kick return. That can't happen. But no, I take that back. They gave up a long pass. Okay, so at least they didn't do that. But like I said, they gave up a 27-yard pass on first down. And like I said, they were in business within like a few plays. They were already in Troy territory. And then obviously like 23-yard touchdown. And then Troy fumbled to end the game, basically. So shout out to Coastal Carolina. Gonna go into this Sun Belt Championship game undefeated. Potentially a chance to get into the top 12 in the final playoff ranking. We'll see what happens there. And shout out to Iowa. They got a nice win, a solid win over Wisconsin, 28-7. Had three second half touchdowns. Smith-Marset had 2 touchdown catches in that third quarter. That really helped them pull away. So again, Wisconsin, their season started off promising, but again, it's just only going downhill from there. So another shout out to BYU. Bounce back. Had a solid win. Zach Wilson looked good. Again, shocker, I know. But yeah, had a solid win there. So, like I said, very eventful. Obviously, the Florida game took the cake, but again, the UCLA game was wild. Coastal Carolina game was kind of wild. The North Carolina-Miami game was wild for different reasons. So again, very, very eventful. And obviously, you got some teams' final regular season game, and then obviously you also got the conference championships coming up this next weekend. So another fun weekend of college football ahead in the coming week. But before we get out of here, I want to do one more segment, and we will discuss, now that the Packers are the 1 seed, what teams do I think have the best chance of going in there and beating them? If any. Like I said, maybe I don't think there is one. But what teams do I think could give them the best run for their money, if, again, that holds? Like I said, there's no guarantee it's going to hold. But if it does hold and teams have to go through Lambeau to get to the playoffs, especially with them being the only team that gets a bye, if they get the 1 seed, who do I think could do it? So like I said, we'll discuss that right after the break. Stay right there.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and One Championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast. So, the NFC playoff picture. Obviously, like we said, as of this moment right now, it runs through Green Bay. With 3 games left,
We will see if that does in fact hold. But like I said, as of this moment right now, that is where we're at. So when you look through the divisions and the conferences and the conference as a whole, what teams could realistically, again, not to say the Packers are some infallible team. Obviously, they have Aaron Rodgers, who's playing great this year. Obviously, they have Aaron Jones. Obviously, they have Devontae Adams. So, like I said, they're a tough tough offense to go against. And defensively, like, again, they're not bad. They have Jair Alexander, he's good. Adrian Amos has been good. Darnell Savage, Zadarius Smith, Kenny Clark. Again, they have good players on that defense, but they can be run on and things like that. So, like I said, you're probably a little bit more scared than Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, and rightly so, than you are of the defense. But still, having to come into Lambeau is not an easy place to play. Not an easy place to win, especially in the playoffs, especially if you're not used to that cold weather. So, like I said, when you look through the different teams in the conference, like who do I realistically think could go in and beat them in Lambeau? We'll tell you right now, the list is very short. So we look at the other division winners. We'll start in the East. Like I said, Washington has the front that could get after the Packers. Like we've seen in their few losses, obviously they got smoked by the Bucs, and a lot of that was due to the fact that Aaron Rodgers played poorly, had 2 interceptions, and was sacked 4 times. So like I said, they got a lot of pressure on him in that game, and that was important and part of the reason why they lost, or really the main reason why they lost. They also lost to the Vikings, which is a weird one. But they also got ran on. Like that was the game that was like, oh, they can be run on. Dalvin Cook had 160 and 3 touchdowns. And plus had another 63 yards and a touchdown receiving. And like I said, that was the big issue, that they just couldn't stop Dalvin Cook. Point blank, period. Then again, the offense wasn't necessarily perfect. But again, Aaron Rodgers still had 3 touchdowns. Devontae Adams had 3 touchdowns. Like I said there, the offense did what you would expect for it to do, per se, just didn't score as many points. But like I said, that was the game where it's like, oh, they can be run on a little bit. Again, took a good running back to do it, but still. And then obviously lost to the Colts in overtime recently. And that was a game where, again, they were this one was in Indianapolis, so not going to be in Lambeau. But they got passed on. Phillip Rivers had 3 touchdowns and almost 300 yards through the air, did have a pick. Aaron Rodgers, again, played well, but he did also have a pick of his own. And like I said, they were up big. They were up 28-14, and they just let Indianapolis hang around. And then, unfortunately, when it went to overtime, they were able to the Colts were able to get a field goal to win it. And like I said, even in that game, they still ran the ball fairly well, 140 yards on the ground. And so, like I said, they still had some pretty decent success there on the ground. So those are 3 games, 3 different types of games, 3 different types of teams. But the one obviously story is you have to score points. And even though, like I said, the Vikings only scored 28, but like I said, the Colts to beat them, they scored 34, and the Bucs scored 38. So like I said, in order to beat them, you have to put up points. Like that is the one thing that seems to be true, is if you're going to want to beat them, you got to put up some points. So you'll need to get probably in the high 20s, maybe 30s, depending. I was thinking the game, the Jaguars game was a weird one. I'm not gonna say I won't count it, but like that was a weird one where they only scored like 24 and needed a touchdown there in the fourth quarter to beat a tanking team. But generally speaking, like again, the other games that they've won, or even like, again against the Saints, they had to score 37 to win that one. They had to score 43 in week 1 to beat the Vikings. So like I said, they've had to put up points to win their games in many cases this year. This is, I think, that's going to continue when you come to Lambeau. But like I said, who can do that? Or who can stop the Packers from scoring points? Like you're going to have to do one or the other. So, like I said, you look at Washington, like, all right, they have the front to get after Aaron Rodgers quite a bit. They have maybe the defense and the secondary to maybe get some turnovers, where there's interceptions, fumbles, things like that. But do they have the offense? And like I said, that'll be the key point, especially if Alex Smith is in there, then like maybe. Again, obviously he hasn't had too much playoff success in his career, but again, at least he's been in playoff games. He's experienced playoff games before. That's assuming they get past their first round matchup. But like I said, like it wouldn't be a complete shock for him. Dwayne Haskins, I mean, him going into Lambeau and winning a game would easily be, I mean, that'd almost be more shocking than Nick Foles winning a Super Bowl, honestly. Like I said, like no, not that he's a first round pick and stuff, but he just hasn't been a good NFL quarterback at this point. I mean, he was literally the third string quarterback at one point this year. So, like I said, he hasn't been a good NFL quarterback. So him going into Lambeau and winning a playoff game would be kind of absurd. Like I said, if that defense can do what they did today and get a couple defensive scores, anything's possible. Shout out to KG. Anything's possible. So, like I said, that'll be the test. And like I said, also, is Gibson healthy? Because if he's healthy again, they can run the ball a little bit, make the offense a little bit more dynamic. Because obviously McKissick and Peyton Barber, like there's only so much they can do. Like Gibson is a true dynamic running back, and it was really turning into one and coming into his own before he got hurt with the toe situation. So that stinks for him. But like I said, if he's playing and like I said, maybe Alex Smith is playing, then again I think the way in which that game would go might be a little bit different than if he's not playing. Him being Gibson or if Dwayne Haskins in there. So, like I said, but like, they do have the defense to get after Aaron Rodgers, which I think will be vital if they want to try to win this game. And you look at the Saints, obviously already played them before, but like again, it'll be interesting to see like can Drew Brees at this point in his career, with his arm strength where it's at, throw the ball in the cold weather. Because like I said, they can run the ball. They have Latavius Murray as a bigger back. Alvin Kamara, obviously, though he hasn't played in that many cold weather playoff games, if any, honestly. So that'd be interesting to see what he's like there. Like I said, they can run the ball a little bit, which will be, like I said, that'd be important. And obviously maybe try to replicate the Dalvin Cook game. But like I said, well, the Drew Brees situation will be the interesting thing. One, is he healthy? Because again, you never know with ribs and things like that, like if they get re-injured or what happens there. Because if you got Taysom Hill in there, then I would be shocked if they would. Like I said, if Drew Brees is in, which obviously is when the offense currently is at their best, though, I mean, maybe James could have something to say about that. We haven't seen him yet on the field with the Saints. But if Drew Brees is in, like that arm strength was already a little shaky. And now you're talking about cold, wind, things like that. Like that can make it even worse. But like the one thing even though Aaron Rodgers is getting up there, the arm's still good. So like I say he'll be all right, I think. I think he'd prefer to not play in the cold. But again, it is what it is. Like I think he'll be all right. Drew Brees, on the other hand, like I said, that could be a little bit shaky, but they have the running backs to where they could do something on the ground that could be enough, and then obviously they have a good pass rush, they have a good defense. Like I said, they had the pieces in place, and then they played them close earlier in the season, so it's not impossible. But again, they'd have to see what Drew Brees is, because like I said, that game was in New Orleans. So like I said, perfect conditions, they're on the turf, they're in the dome, like it's like everything's good. Like I said, they're going to be in Lambeau potentially. Like I said, this is all hypothetical in that regard. So like I said, that could be a big story. But like I said, they would need another good game from their defense in terms of getting pressure, getting after Aaron Rodgers, things like that. Then you go out to the West. The Rams are currently in the lead, so we'll talk about them first. They are an intriguing one to me. Because if they can get Cam Akers to do what he's been doing, or at least get their running game in general to do what it's been doing over these last couple of weeks, then they're a team that can intrigue me in terms of going to Lambeau and getting the dub. Obviously, do I trust Jared Goff in the cold? Not at all. Nor do I think most people would. But that running game, if they can do that, then they can play action off of that. And if they can play action off of that, they can make a lot of easy throws or have a lot of easy throws with Jared Goff to where he's not trying to force the ball downfoot into a wind or in the frigid Lambeau air. Like he can do things around line of scrimmage, he can get play action, easy completions, things like that, to where he won't have to do too much. This is the only other time I've really seen him play in cold weather that I can remember. Was the Bears game a couple of years ago where he was like terrible in that one. That was like the 2018 season. He was so both him and Mitch were basically trying to out terrible each other in that game. But like he was really bad in that one. That was really the start of like, oh, okay, maybe like there are ways in which you can beat this Sean McVay offense. And there are ways in which you can make life difficult for Jared Goff. And obviously it's shown to be true over the next couple of years. But, it's been playing better. Playing all right recently. But again, they've run the ball better. So they can do that. I'm not going to say they're going to pull out like whatever Cam Akers ran for on Thursday, like 160, 170. I'm not saying that's going to happen. But if they can run the ball effectively and thus play action, thus get the ball out of Jared Goff's hands to Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp, let them do the work instead of trying to force Jared Goff to win the game, especially in Lambeau. That'll be key. And also the defense. Like I said, their pass defense is great. They have Aaron Donald, who may very well win Defensive Player of the Year, though. Obviously, T.J. Watt's got something to say about that. Xavier Howard's got something to say about that. Like, again, he's not alone in that, but he's definitely at the top, one of the top of the people at the top of the list for that award. So, like I said, the Rams are a team that intrigues me. Like I said, and plus they got a good corner to match up with Devontae Adams, which is going to be key as well. Because I mean, not to say they don't have any other options, but again, if you can stop Devontae Adams, that severely limits their passing attack. And like I said, Jalen Ramsey can do that. Not that the other teams don't. Like, again, the Washington has a pretty good pass defense this year, and then again, you try putting Lattimore on him or Janoris on him with the Saints. But like I said, they're not at the same level as Jalen Ramsey is, or the same caliber right now that Jalen Ramsey is. Like I said, he's a guy that can potentially, not say it would happen, but potentially eliminate a Devontae Adams type. So like I said, that'll make things better. Like I said, make it more of a defensive game, and I trust the Rams defense, at least right now, more than trust the Packers defense, even at home. But again, there's no fans and things like that. So like I said, that'll be key. Plus, I know they can get after Aaron Rodgers. Let me look at some of the wildcard teams. Like I said, you're talking about the Seahawks. I don't know. I don't know if I trust that defense just yet. Obviously, it's playing much better recently. I say the pass rush, outside Jamal Adams, who are their pass rushers? Like, who's going to be the one to get Aaron Rodgers in trouble? And then also, on the flip side, who is covering Devontae Adams? Shaquille Griffin? I mean, he's not bad, but I don't know about that one, big fella. And then, like I said, defensively, again, they can run the ball, and they have Russell Wilson. Like, those two things help you. Like I said, there might not be a quarterback I trust more on the NFC side than outside of Russell Wilson, than Aaron Rodgers. Like I said, those would be the two I would have the most faith in. I mean, Brady, maybe, but again, he's older. Like, I don't know. Like I said, those are two guys I would have a significant amount of faith in. But, like I said, I don't know if just Russ will be enough, so they're going to have to run the ball well. And like I said, they're getting Chris Carson. Like, Chris Carson's back. Like, their run game is getting better as the guys get healthier again. So, like I said, that would be key. And obviously, getting Russ's experience. Like, he's played against the Packers, obviously not in Lambeau. He's played against the Packers before. At least I don't think he's played against the Packers in Lambeau. I know the last time I thought they played was the 2014 NFC Championship game. And that was in Seattle. So like I said, different circumstances, different weather, obviously. But again, he's been in the playoffs before. He's had the experience. They've obviously won a Super Bowl. He's obviously won a Super Bowl. Not all the players on this team, but you get the point. Like, he's been there before. He won't be flustered by it, I would imagine. So like I said, that'll be key. And like I said, I have faith in him. We'll see about that. I think the Cardinals are in position right now. Do not trust the Cardinals right at this moment. They just haven't shown me enough. Currently, again, maybe I'll feel differently about them after the next 3 games. But right now, no. Like, I'm not even going to break down the team. Like, no, I just don't trust them. And then the Bucks are a weird one, because obviously the Bucks smoked them early in the year. It was in Tampa, but they smoked them early in the year. So you would think, all right, this should be a good matchup. And like I said, maybe it would if they get that type of pressure. But also, again, Tom Brady and his scattershot and accuracy down the field will only be hampered or worsened if he's playing in frigid weather. Now, he has played in cold weather before. Like, he played in New England. Like, it's not like he's not used to cold weather. So, again, he's another guy that I wouldn't really be that too worried about, because again, he has a lot of experience. But just at this point in his career, with the arm strength being where it's at, where again, it's not terrible, but it's not it's not what it once was. And then being in the cold weather, potentially, like, that could be scary for me. And again, even the offense isn't like perfect yet, but like, they can kind of run the ball with Ronald Jones. And again, you would think Fournette would be a good cold weather back, but I don't think he's ever really played in cold weather in his life. So, and I think even in the games that he has played in cold weather in the NFL, he hasn't really done that well, which, again, surprising for a guy that's a little bit bigger. But again, some people just don't like the cold. Like, there's not, size doesn't really matter. If you don't like the cold, you don't like the cold. There's not really much you can do to change that. So like I said, the Bucks would be an interesting one, because again, they've faced them already. They beat them badly. Like I said, would they be able to replicate that in Lambeau? That would be the key thing. So, like I said, if I were going to pick a team right now, it sounds crazy because Jared Goff is the quarterback, but you probably have the most faith in the Rams currently. Only because, again, you don't know if Drew Brees is going to be healthy, and also don't know what that arm strength is going to look like in Lambeau, potentially. But like I said, if I were going to pick a team right now that I had faith in to maybe go into Lambeau and win a game in the playoffs again, assuming the playoffs go through Lambeau, I would probably say the Rams, just because that if they can get the running game going the way it has been the past couple of weeks, and then that defense shows up and travels from LA to Wisconsin, I think they can probably give them their best shot. Like I said, they can run the ball, they can play action, they can play good defense. You got to make this a defensive game. Like I said, if you let Aaron Rodgers do his thing out there, now you got to keep up points. And like I said, you're not as equipped to play in cold weather as Aaron Rodgers, because you're not used to playing in cold weather. So I guess that's going to be a big thing. So like I said, if I were to pick a team, probably the Rams at this point in time, based on what I've seen so far. Like I said, if Drew Brees is going to be healthy, and like I said, the arm strength is a little bit better, they'd probably be the team, because again, I still think on paper they're probably the most complete team in the NFC. But obviously, quarterback situation's holding them back a little bit right now, so we'll have to see about that. So like I said, if I had to pick a team right now, probably the Rams, but we'll see. Like I said, we don't know if it's going to be the Packers get the 1 seed. We don't know who they're going to end up playing in the playoffs. Like I said, maybe somebody else could upset them. And again, the Washington, they have the defense to do it. It's just that will they be able to score enough points on offense? That'll be the key thing. But they got the front to get after Aaron Rodgers to make life miserable for him, and then maybe you get a couple turnovers that could lead to short fields or even potential scores. It's the same thing that the Rams could do, same thing that the Saints could do. So those would be the teams. You got to have a defense that's good enough to hold the Packers down and potentially get some turnovers. You got to be able to run the ball a little bit, and you got to have a quarterback that's not going to make too many mistakes. I mean, that sounds simple, right? That's not too hard. I mean, like these are playoff teams, right? Like, they should be able to do that. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if and when that happens come playoff time. But that'll do it for me here today on the GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast. And I want to thank you guys always for listening to me talk about sports. If you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're always on top when we drop our latest stuff. Also, if you could please as well give us a 5-star rating, write us a nice review. Very appreciated, very helpful. Also, if you guys like or dislike the ways you can improve, all that fun stuff. And also, if you're on social media, we're on social media, so you can find us there. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can debate, and we can discuss. Talk about, like I said, some of your takeaways from college football this weekend, your thoughts on Florida literally throwing away their chance to get into the playoff, thoughts and takeaways and major storylines you had from the NFL Sunday, and again, predictions for the Monday night game between the Browns and the Ravens. I said thoughts about preseason basketball so far. I don't really talk about it, but like I said, aesthetically, it's kind of weird to me. Maybe we'll talk about that more on another episode, but to me, it's a little bit weird. Like I said, if you feel the same way, hey, feel free to let me know. What teams you looking at? What players have you thought have looked good so far? Again, it's only like 1 or 2 games. Like I said, like coming off injury, John Wall, KD, not looking that bad. The Lakers, also not looking that bad. Some of the rookie, not looking that bad. So like I said, any other thoughts, feel free to reach out to us and let us know, and like I said, we can discuss them. And before I get out of here, as I always do, I want to give a shout out to essential workers that have worked tirelessly through the pandemic to make sure, again, everybody's as safe, as healthy as they can be. So doctors, nurses, EMTs, first responders, firefighters, postal service workers, retail workers, grocery store workers, dollar store, everybody's been deemed essential during this pandemic. Shout out to you doing the work that a lot of people wouldn't want to do or wouldn't do under the circumstances that some of you may or may not be put into. And also dealing with something that you guys have had to deal with, whether it's, again, potentially unsafe conditions or being around people that don't take COVID as seriously as they should, things like that nature. I say shout out to you guys for doing that and doing the work that needs to be done to try to help make this better, even though it's, people don't care enough, so it's not really working. Unfortunately, for you. Because like I said, no, you still have to care. Even if everybody else doesn't care, you guys, the essential workers, still have to care. So shout out to them. Also like FedEx, UPS, Amazon, all those delivery services. Like I said, any sort of delivery service, again, that allows people to stay at home and not have to go out if they don't want to. Shout out to you. You guys are doing a lot of good work as well. And also, like I said, if you're still going to restaurants, bars, things of that nature, just please try to tip generously if you can. Like I said, a lot of these places are starting to shut down indoor dining and things like that. So these restaurants are going to be hit even harder as, again, we get colder and as COVID cases continue to go up. So like I said, if you're still able to go out to these places where you live, and I'll tip these people generously, like I'm saying. Service industry, among many other industries, is going to be hit hard this winter over these next 3 to 6 months before like the vaccine is more readily available to the general public. So, like I said, if you can, just I imagine a nice tip would go a long way for these people. Also, wear your mask. It's very simple and very easy. But that'll do it for me today. I've been Chris Blades. That has been my time. And until next time, peace out.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.